My wife asked for a 2-week break to test our marriage. By day 3 she was with another man, so I collected every receipt and exposed her at a family dinner before watching her affair explode in public. I thought my marriage was pretty stable when I was 34. No marriage is perfect, but it is strong enough that I never gave the thought to my wife asking for a break. Took place at night on a Tuesday. She abruptly set down her fork and said, "I think we need to take some space. Maybe 2 weeks apart, just to figure things out." We had just finished dinner. Nothing special, just the two of us at the table. I initially misheard her space, which was 2 weeks apart. It sounded like something teenagers in a high school relationship would say, not a married couple with years of experience, which made me laugh a little. However, she did not laugh. She appeared serious and even anxious. "What do you mean a break?" I inquired of her. "We have a family. We never take breaks. Together we sort things out." She exhaled as if she had practiced it. "I just need some time to think things through and see if what we have is really strong enough. Because we never gave each other space, I don't want us to resent each other in the future." It might appear to be a reasonable request on the surface. Couples go through difficult times. People sometimes require time to reflect. But here's the thing. It doesn't feel like soul-arching when someone asks for a divorce. It has the impression that someone has already left the room and is merely attempting to make it official. As I sat there and listened to her, I had this in the back of my mind. If they are already halfway through, who asked for a 2-minute break? I backed off a little. I told her that we should talk and maybe try counseling if she was unhappy, but she quickly said no. She replied, No, nothing like that. I only require space and alone time. I'll stay for 2 weeks with a friend." She attempted to portray it as innocuous and temporary, like I shouldn't be concerned. But I knew there was something wrong. That night I didn't want to fight. Despite my reluctance, I couldn't help but feel sick to my stomach. I kept thinking to myself that maybe she just needed some space to breathe. I might have overthought things, but deep down I knew the truth already. Space was not the issue here. I couldn't stop thinking of scenarios as I lay in bed alone that night for the first time in years. Did she already have a relationship? Was this break simply a cover-up for something she was unwilling to admit? I tried to explain why the questions kept going in circles, but the suspicion would not go away. Even though it was only our first night apart, I already had the impression that something that could never be fixed existed between us. I kept thinking back about her expression when she asked. At least not the obvious kind of guilt existed. It more closely resembled someone bracing themselves, as though she knew I wouldn't like it but had already decided. I promised myself that I would give her the space she desired. I would not pursue, blow up her phone, or beg her to remain. I would allow her to put our marriage to the test if she really needed to. However, I was already preparing for what I might discover in the back of my mind. Let's face it. When your partner asks for a 2-week break, it rarely has to do with finding themselves. It usually comes down to finding someone else. My doubts had transformed into more than just doubts by the 3rd day of this so-called break. The signs were flashing red. Since she left, I hadn't heard much from her. A handful of brief texts. "Don't worry, I'm okay. I will also check in later." Nothing reassuring or evocative of a wife missing her husband. Updates merely at the cold surface level. That evening, as I was mindlessly scrolling through my feed on my phone, I noticed something that stopped me dead in my tracks. A picture from a downtown bar had been shared by a friend. At first, all I could see of it was a group shot of people laughing and holding drinks, but then I saw one face, my wife. Additionally, she wasn't hush-hushing away in the corner. She was in the center of attention, her arm around a stranger to me. He had his hand on her leg. Additionally, they appeared at ease together. Not just friends. Rather, they're more like a newlywed couple who can't stop talking to each other. I spent a lot of time staring at that picture. It was even not concealed. Whoever saw her didn't matter. She appeared to be happy, free, and almost single once more. That's when I realized it. Space and reflection were not the focus of this. From the beginning, she had been lying. My initial reaction was to immediately call her and demand an explanation, but I forced myself not to. The truth would remain unchanged if I blew up at her. and without evidence, she would simply twist it to make me appear suspicious. As a result, I began collecting her tagged in pictures, small clips on other people's stories where she was laughing with the same guy, clinking glasses and leaning on his shoulder, appeared in screenshot after screenshot. I managed to save them despite the fact that they each felt like a chest punch. I became more enraged the more I looked. She was not at all concealing this. She might have believed I wouldn't see it. Perhaps she did not care. In any case, while I was at home attempting to gain my trust, she was out there living as if I didn't exist. One of our friends privately contacted me later that evening. She was also visible to them. In just a few days, I went out with this man multiple times. They claimed that I didn't want to get into the middle of things. However, you should be aware that she is not simply contemplating marriage. Rather, she is with someone. I needed confirmation like that. It wasn't out of fear. It wasn't me being unsure of myself. It was true. The range of feelings that came over me is beyond me. Anger, hurt, and disappointment. However, beneath it all was an odd sense of clarity. She figured calling it a break would somehow soften the blow or provide her with an escape route, and she was right. She was unaware, however, that she had provided me with all the rope I required. All I had to do was allow her to continue their marriage. I therefore did not confront her. No, not yet. Instead, I kept watching, collecting, and waiting because I was going to let her test our marriage. Furthermore, there would be no more doubts regarding her loyalty after the test was completed. I had more evidence than I could have ever hoped for by the 5th day of her so-called break. Photos, screenshots, and even first-hand accounts from individuals who had witnessed her with him. I knew everything I needed to know about her respect for our marriage, or lack of it, because she wasn't keeping anything secret. However, instead of exploding, I decided to act. I'd hold off. I would then demonstrate to her what I knew by allowing her to enter the house once more, looking me in the eye, and acting as though nothing had transpired. She finally made it back for a visit that weekend. As if it were any other day, she entered the building through the door. "Hey, how are you?" With a casual kiss to the cheek, as if she hadn't been out and about with another man the previous few nights. I gave her close attention. She dropped her bag on the couch and sank into the chair next to me, even though she was dressed more elegantly than usual and had her hair and makeup done. This behavior appeared to be normal. She changed the subject after a few minutes of casual conversation. She said with care, "I think I need a little more time. I'm still not sure if this break has been beneficial for me. Possibly for another week or so." That was my opportunity. The folder I had prepared appeared. A literal folder I printed out with photos, screenshots, and even text messages from friends describing what they saw was not metaphorical. I placed it in front of her on the table and stated, "You don't need more time. You must be truthful." She froze. She held the folder in her hand for a brief moment before opening it. Instead, she offered the very first justification I was anticipating. "It is not as you believe. He is merely a friend." I even didn't say anything. I simply moved the folder closer to her until she finally opened it. After picture, stacked proof on top of proof. She was at the bar with him, her holding his arm as though they had been together for months and laughing in the background of a friend's video. Her skin turned pale. She tried again, but her speech was off. "Wait, we just talked to each other." It didn't matter. I gave a head shake. "Don't make fun of me. You desired some time to evaluate the marriage? Was this your exam? As far as I can tell, you failed on day one." She started to cry at that point, but even her tears seemed staged. She claimed that she had made a mistake, was confused, and did not know what she wanted. The problem is that it wasn't a mistake. One poor decision is a mistake. There were choices for 5 days. Outings, posts, photos, and holding another man in public. That was not misinformation. That was a deception. I assured her that I would not scream. I wouldn't ply my trade. I was also not going to compete with her new love interest. I wouldn't fight for someone who already thought I wasn't good enough. I didn't tell her at the time that I had one more move left to make, which would stop her from turning this into her own story. She believed that if I expressed what I knew, she could gaslight me, claim that I was overreacting, or even portray me as controlling. However, I wasn't going to give her that chance. Before leaving the room, all I said was, "You wanted a break." I let her sit there with the folder, page by page, speechless. "You're about to get one from which you can't recover." The trap was prepared. We had planned a family get-together a few days after our fight at home. One of those huge gatherings where both parties eat birthday dinner together. After thinking about skipping it, I realized that this was the perfect place to end a ruse. In an effort to keep things quiet and give herself more time, she had been trying to disguise her affair as a friendship. However, in front of people who knew us both, she would not be able to talk herself out of it. We arrived separately. She seemed anxious, and I could tell. Her earlier texts were brief and hesitant. She was polite when she entered the house and smiled at relatives, but her eyes kept moving toward me. She was aware that I was now in control. I kept quiet for the first hour, allowing everyone to settle in and giving her the impression that maybe things weren't as bad as she thought. But when we started talking about our relationships, someone noticed that we hadn't been together very much and wanted to know how we were doing. I didn't run away from the question. "Actually, things aren't good," I said, as I always did, standing up calmly. She requested a 2-year break from our marriage. She also spent her nights with another man during that break. The entire room fell silent. She stumbled right away as heads turned toward her. "It is not true." However, after opening the folder of videos and photos that I had accumulated, I took out my phone and placed it on the table. I said evenly, "You've all seen her posts. It is not a rumor. It's evidence." Her skin turned red. She tried to laugh it off by saying that it was being taken out of context, but nobody seemed to be convinced, and her voice was shaky. The man she had been seeing then showed up, as if the universe wanted to add fuel to the fire. It would appear that she had invited him in the hope of either luring him into her world or forcing me to accept the one she had created. The tension eased as soon as he entered the room through the door. One of my relatives lost it because he was especially close to us and didn't like being treated disrespectfully. He directly confronted the individual, scolding him for interfering with a marriage. Within minutes, voices were raised, chairs were pushed back, and hands were flying as the conversation heated up. In the living room, a full-blown brawl broke out immediately. I wasn't interested in it. However, I also did not intervene to stop it because the truth was already known. It was seen by everyone. Everyone was aware. Additionally, she was unable to spin out of it any longer. Her fling stormed out, cursing under his breath, before things settled down. She was humiliated and was left standing in front of her family with nothing to say. Her surrounding silence was worse than yelling. Disappointed and disgusted, people simply shook their heads. She packed a bag and left that evening. There was no dramatic farewell or final speech. She was aware that she had damaged her own credibility. She sent me a few messages in the days that followed, with lengthy paragraphs explaining how she had made a mistake, how she was lost and confused, and how she wanted to try to rebuild. However, she had already shown me who she was, so I did not respond. There are times when you don't have to take the trash out on your own. It leaves on its own. And in the end, I only experienced clarity rather than relief or victory. I gave her a chance to show me who she was, and she didn't, at least not in the way she thought she would. I am grateful that you stuck around to the end. Make sure to subscribe and check back for more content.